Utility software is system software that performs a specific maintenance task on the computer, and the distinction worth being clear about is this. A utility works on the computer itself, keeping it running well, rather than helping the user produce anything. A word processor helps you write a letter. A disk defragmenter helps the disk work properly. Both are programs. Both may have windows and buttons, but one serves the user's purpose and the other serves the machine's. That is the same who does it work for test from the last lesson, and it puts utilities firmly in system software. They are usually supplied with the operating system and they usually run without you asking, which is part of why they are easy to overlook. Antivirus software, sometimes called anti-malware, protects the system from malicious programs, and the syllabus wants the process rather than the idea. It scans files and incoming data, comparing them against a database of known virus signatures, a signature being a recognizable pattern within a known piece of malware. It checks files before they are opened or downloaded and monitors the system continuously in the background, rather than only when you ask. When it finds something suspicious, it quarantines it, meaning it isolates the file so that it cannot run, and then either deletes it or lets the user decide, and it updates its signature database regularly. That last step is the one to include, because it explains the software's central limitation. It can only recognize threats it already knows about. An out-of-date antivirus is close to useless against a virus written last week, which is why updating is not an optional extra but part of how the protection works at all. File management, or the file manager, is the utility that lets a user organize stored data, creating, opening, renaming, moving, copying, and deleting files and folders, searching for them, and viewing their properties such as size and date modified. It is the utility you use most constantly without ever thinking of it as one, because to most people it simply looks like the computer. Note the relationship to the operating system's storage management function from the previous lesson. The OS maintains the file system, and the file manager is the utility that gives you a way to work with it. A device driver is software that allows the operating system to communicate with a particular piece of hardware. It translates the operating system's general instructions into the specific commands that one model of device understands. And that is a genuinely important idea rather than a definition to memorize. There are thousands of different printers, and it would be impossible for an operating system to contain code for everyone. So instead, the OS issues a general instruction: print this page, and the driver supplied by that printer's manufacturer converts it into whatever that particular printer needs. This is why plugging in a new device sometimes involves installing a driver, and why a device with no driver for your operating system simply will not work, however well made it is. Drivers are also why the peripheral management function of the OS is possible at all. The formatter utility prepares a storage device for use. It organizes the surface into the structure the file system expects, tracks and sectors on a magnetic disk, as we covered in 3.3, and creates the file system that will record where everything lives. Two things worth knowing. Formatting normally erases the data already present, or at least the records of where it is, which is why the warnings are so insistent. And a drive must be formatted before it can be used at all, because without a file system, there is nowhere to write down what is stored where. A brand new drive arrives formatted, which is why this is invisible most of the time. Defragmentation is the utility most worth seeing rather than reading about. Here is how the problem arises. When files are saved, deleted, and resized over time, the operating system fills whatever free space it can find, so a single file ends up split into pieces scattered across the disk. That is fragmentation, and it is not a fault, it is the natural result of using a disk normally. Now recall the hard disk mechanism from 3.3, a read-write head on an arm moving across spinning platters. To read a fragmented file, that head has to travel to one part of the disk, then another, waiting for the platter to rotate into position each time. All that physical movement takes time, and the more fragmented the file, the slower it is to open. The defragmenter rearranges the data so that the pieces of each file are stored contiguously next to each other. The head then reads the file in one continuous sweep instead of jumping around, and access times improve. Now, one point that matters and which older material gets wrong. This benefits magnetic hard disks and only those. A solid-state drive has no moving parts at all, so there is no head to move and no rotation to wait for. Every location takes the same time to reach. Defragmenting an SSD gains nothing, and because it performs a large number of writes, it actively consumes some of the drive's finite write cycles. So the honest answer is that defragmentation speeds up an HDD and should not be run on an SSD. So the three kinds of system software divide cleanly by goal. The operating system provides the platform, managing hardware and giving the user an interface. Utility programs maintain and optimize that system. Antivirus, file management, formatting, defragmentation, backup, compression. And translators convert code from one form to another, which is the next lesson. Notice they are not competing, they are layered. Utilities run on top of the operating system and use its services, and the OS itself is what the user's applications ultimately sit on. 4 things to take away. First, define a utility by its job. System software performing a specific maintenance task on the computer. Second, for antivirus, describe the process. Scanning against a database of known signatures, quarantining what it finds, and updating regularly, rather than just saying it removes viruses. The updating step is frequently a mark on its own. Third, for defragmentation, give the reason and not only the action. The pieces of files are rearranged to be contiguous so that the read-write head does not have to move as far, which reduces access time. And fourth, remember that defragmentation applies to hard disk drives. If a question describes a device with solid-state storage, saying it should be defragmented is wrong, and knowing why, no moving parts, so nothing is gained, is exactly the kind of reasoning that separates answers.